Welcome aboard. A busy weekend to get through, lads. And Dick Clerkin, you have thrown us. We don't have your usual branded advertising in the background. We don't know what to do with
No,
ourselves here.
no, slumming it today, Conan. You know yourself.
And National League champions, All Ireland champions, three Club All Ireland champions, and now Kerry have the bloody Oscars to boast as well, as Jessie Buckley
Yeah,
became the first Irish woman in history to win Best Actress. Pat Spillane, welcome aboard.
Yeah, great weekend for Kerry. The best, probably Saturday night, Kerry produced the best display in this year's league. Awesome against Mayo. And then to crown it on after the weekend, Jessie winning the Oscar, which is brilliant. I know her mother and father, well, her father works in the Park and Silo Hotel just back from me, knew her grandmother, great family. So amazing going. It just goes to show, you can dare to dream. A girl from a little town in Ireland becomes the greatest actress in the world in 2025. Fabulous.
Great stock down there. We'll get back to Kerry v Mayo in a little bit. I've got a couple of talking points to start off with, and the first has to be Kieran McGeeney, because when a manager is this high profile and he's speaking a lot nowadays, and he's speaking very strongly, and he came out and he had a few comments about David Goff. Now, he didn't mention David Goff, but I think we can put two and two together here when he came out after the game against Dublin, and he said, some people just like to be the centre of attention, and you just have to give it to them because that's all it is. Until something's done to improve these things, I don't know. But luckily, there's videos so everybody can watch and make up their own minds. Look, there's a few things you could talk about here. You could talk about the black card for Jarly O'Byrne's being harsh. You could talk about the free kick at the start of the second half. And you could say there's no need for any of these things. But David Goff would look at this and think, well, that's the rules. I'm just applying the rules. And I'm asking, what does Kieran McGeeney think he's going to get out of this, Pat? Because all he's going to do, in my opinion, is annoy David Goff even more, annoy another referee even more, and they're just going to apply the rules even more firmly next time.
You're right. I'm a bit mystified because Kieran, as you know, he's not the liveliest of characters you meet. Normally, he can be dour and he's very serious and whatever like that. And he seems to have taken up over a role in the last couple of weeks that he wants to do a sort of comedy act and provide the jokes for the journalists. And like it's a bit like me doing sort of monologues and it doesn't suit Kieran. But yeah, a bit like Bino. It seems to be box office because I know you journalists, like, you don't get much sound bites out of the players. You're hoping that the managers can come good. And like the hurling boys have had a bonanza since Ben O'Connor has taken over as Cork hurling. And in football, McGuinness, firstly, because when he was complaining about the critics of his All Ireland tactics, and now McGeeney for the last couple of weeks seem to be they're lapping up every word. Where's he coming from? Like, the danger is that he's going to be attracting. You can say he's deflecting attention from the players and all that. His criticism of referees could backfire. I can see where he's coming from, but it could backfire. He could end up with a fine or a suspension. I'm not too sure. How right or how wrong was he on his comments about David Goff? I sort of agree with him. Certainly, there's no doubt about it. I looked at the incident again with Charlie Oak, black card. Geez, you could have given a black card to other fellas just as equally. Why was Charlie Oak picked out for the black card? I'm not too sure. I just feel that with David Goff several years ago was the best referee in Gaelic football. David Goff is no longer the best referee in Gaelic football. And I just look at referees now and I say, like, if I'm not watching the referee, or if I'm not wondering who's the referee there today, if just the game has been played and you're focusing on the players, you're focusing on the skill, and you see that with, I like Sean Hurson, I like Martin McNally, I like the way Paul Falloon just leaves the players play on and doesn't blow up for every foul. Brendan Cawley, there's some really good referees. I just always feel in recent years, probably always, that David Goff seems to always become the centre of attention, so that whenever David Goff is reffing a game, you end up talking about David Goff. I just think he likes the publicity, he likes the fame, he likes the notoriety, and he sort of takes centre stage. And I would agree with McGeeney in most of his comments.
Yeah, the Jarlath O'Byrne's thing was really weird. He was standing there, and then three Dublin players, I think it was
Yeah,
Niall Scully, initially shoulders him and then drags him into another two of them, and they're all pushing it. He doesn't actually do anything, but there's an official, to be fair to David Goff, there's seems to be an official there that is hell bent on pointing the finger at Jarlath O'Byrne's and telling him to get out of there, and he maybe communicated to David Goff. And then, yeah, I watched it back like you, and I could see Goff and McGeeney talking, and it looked very calm. I don't know what was said, but it didn't look like it was over the top.
No.
McGeeney might have said something, but then Goff comes out at the start of the second half, gives the black card, gives the free. I suppose, Dick, I don't want to be like holier than thou, because I'm as bad as Kieran McGeeney here. I shout at referees even from the stand, or if I'm coaching, I sometimes am guilty of thinking, you need to put them under a bit of pressure. I don't think that actually works. Like I said, I think referees can make their own minds up and actually could annoy them even more. And that's now 3 points that Kieran McGeeney has given away because of David Goff, because of his argument with David Goff.
Yeah, and Kieran would be a bit of an outlier in that. There's not that. I haven't been to too many games that I've seen the referee call that into play. Yeah. So Kieran, you can only be responsible for your own behaviour at the end of the day, and the referees have as Roy Keane used to always say, when you're reflecting on yellow cards or red cards, a different ref, a different day will let you away with it. But he used to say, did I give him the opportunity to send me off? Yes or no? Yes, he did. Whether he does it or not is another thing, but it's outside of your control at that stage. So it's a curious one. I don't know. We thought at the start of the year was born out of frustration because he was on a run of losing results, but yet it was a fantastic win for Armagh. So you sort of question, well, why do it? Where's the value in it? As you say, is it for some comic relief and to grab a few headlines, which is getting a bit repetitive at this stage? You sort of lost its effect at this stage, especially when he's been sort of sarcasm, as they say, is the lowest form of wit, as we all know. So I think Kieran McGeeney is a fantastic manager, a fantastic character, and has so much to bring. And I'd sooner him just come out and say it, as this sort of guarded sort of quips, say what you have to say and own it, because we were sort of reading between the lines, and if there is something bugging him, just say it, and people will listen, because he's done enough in the game. He's as good authority on anything at this point in time. I think he's probably just a bit frustrated. Maybe there's this. He's around a long time now, and he's I don't know what's his 11 to 12 years. You'd know, going off the top of your head, but the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Is he getting? He's not bored. What is he wanting? Is he not getting he's not getting enough out of the games and the experience of being an Armagh manager that he feels the need to go in and do this? I don't know. It's a curious one, because it's very out of character.
Yeah.
Is it going to add value to Armagh? Is it going to add value to his attempts to both stay up, win an Ulster title, which he hasn't done, and I'm sure he really wants to, and ultimately potentially going back up his All-Ireland win in 2024? It remains to be seen, because there's still a job of work to do for the first step on that.
Yeah,
I think he's after swallowing a bit of the old hype, and maybe the bit of ego is taking over, that he's reading all these lovely comments from the journalists that he's box office and he's so funny that he feels, geez, I must do my funny act. And like, a classic case in point was Oisín Connaughton, who scored the goal of the weekend, and there were some brilliant goals the weekend. Oisín Connaughton scored a brilliant goal, but like, his reaction, McGeeney's was, I thought he should have punched the ball over the bar, and I'd be putting him into a corner lately and giving him a bit of a doing or whatever like that. It's not to say, you're right, sarcasm, it's the lowest form of wit. I just don't think I think it's stupid anyway. But anyway, he was deflecting attention from what was an absolutely brilliant performance by him. And instead of going the old fucking sarcasm route and having a pop at the referee, he should have been focusing on what was a magnificent performance by Armagh, and a performance that puts them in a serious. I've said it in the last couple of weeks, and we look, everything we like myself and Dick, we're not in the business of fairy tales. We give our opinions based on evidence. I'm not Hans Christian Andersen. So, like, everything we've said about Armagh, it's based on evidence. They're turning down chances of goals. They're opting for easy punch-over points. But, like, the one thing I look at it is that I was always saying, they're only they're a little clip away from being a real serious threat in winning the All-Ireland. And I thought, geez, in that second half the last day, I saw a team. Could they win an All-Ireland? Absolutely. Are they one of the serious contenders for the All-Ireland at the moment, alongside Kerry, alongside Donegal, alongside Galway? Yes, they are. And I just thought, the one thing you're always taking, you want to take, is you learn from your mistakes. And the one thing we looked at, when you look at Armagh last year, and that meltdown that they had against Kerry, that 14 points they conceded in those few minutes, And most of those came from kickouts, from a breakdown in the kickouts from Ethan Rafferty. And you saw yesterday, and I've seen it in glimpses all throughout the year, they have worked on the kickouts. They have worked on cracking the opposition's kickouts, and they have worked on their own kickouts. 114 of 224 came from kickouts last week. Last Saturday night. 19 of them came from cracking Dublin's kickouts. So that's brilliant. I like that. A team that's learning. And yes, they scored the 2 goals, which they haven't been. They scored 2 great goals last week. And I look at their stats. The highest scorers in the country, down. The second highest scorers in the country, Meath. And the third highest scorers in the National League, Armagh. A serious performance last week.
Let's come back to Armagh and Dublin in a few minutes. I just want to keep going with the good news because you've teed me up nicely there, Pat. You talked about Oisín Connery's goal. I think the players are taking back a bit of control here from coaches now. The players are doing things that you normally wouldn't be allowed to do. So fight it under the bend your back category. Do you know that, if a player scoops the ball up and carries on, we marvel over it. If he scoops the ball up and drops it, then we give out to him, or he dribbles it along the floor, then we give out to him. Now you have players taking their man on like Oisín Connery and rattling the net, Kieran McGeeney rattling the net, Ethan Jordan with the instep into the top right corner. There's all this stuff that's happening, and even then Sean O'Shea, I think, typifies it. The Michael Burns is so well, like he's under a bit of pressure. Mayo would actually say this is good defending, and then the ball comes out to Sean O'Shea on the ground 40 metres out, and he whips it from the ground over the bar. But this is stuff that a coach, would tell you, they would frown upon it, they would tell you not to do this. But I feel like the players, that bit of flair, that bit of backing themselves is coming back into the game now.
It is, and I think maybe we were overstating maybe a wee bit at the start of the year, like that there was games at the weekend, there's plenty of fisted points, but
yeah,
we tend to forget the brilliance that we have seen from the likes of Clifford, Derek Canavan's, Oisín Connery's. Like there's a lot of good, like the quality. Jesus, we'll come to like the quality of the scoring now. There's an argument to be made that the bloody 2-pointer line has to be taken out 5 yards because it's almost getting boring to watch these sort of they run out of superlatives, like for these scores. But to the point that when you see an Oisín Connery, it's getting like, or even young what was his name, O'Connor, for me the game
Jack
before,
O'Connor.
like the goals like we're seeing now, and there are a bit of a rare breed. I've had time to sit down and do the stats now and the analysis. I'd say the goal to points ratio has just been left behind compared to what it was now. We've got massive scores, as you said, the totals that have been run up, Pat, is you're averaging mid-20s, but it's probably out of that you're averaging maybe a goal per game per team out of that. So it's way out of kilter. So when they do happen, they are really eye-catching, but it makes the case we want to see more of them. I want to see more of them. I want the game, the rules, the coaching to create those, to be incentivized, and goes back to, should the goal have been left at 4 points to incentivize going below the bar, then fisting it over? I think there's a strong case for that, because I'm sort of losing interest in seeing 2-pointers, especially when there's gales blowing, which feels like every week of the league this point. But especially for the fisted points, because they're the stuff that are on highlight reels at the weekends and are on the reruns for Sunday leagues, not the booming 2-pointers, which they're grand, but they're already starting to lose their impact sweep. I don't know, is that just me?
No,
or I've just found that now in the last couple of games. I'm like,
you're right, Dick. It brings in 2 things, right? The new rules. What have the new rules given? It is given time and space for the top players of the game, i.e. the forwards, to score. So, right, you have the great players like the David Cliffords and the Sean O'Shea's, and they're thriving under the new rules. Kerry are thriving under the new rules because Kerry, unlike a lot of other counties, Kerry are a kicking team. And there's 2 things about Kerry, and like, you talk about the DNA of Kerry football, and in the DNA, the one thing that is in the DNA of a Kerry footballer is their kicking game. Kerry players at all levels are very good at kicking from the hand, and that's didn't come around by accident. That's coached into them from a very early age, and they're very good at kicking. So I look at where they're good at in the kick. Kerry kick the ball more in transition than any other team. I still see a lot of counties still stuck, and your county, even Derry in the first half the last day, agreed playing against the wind, but an awful lot of counties are still playing the ball through the hands, carrying the ball, they're slow on transition. I think a lot of the Ulster teams in particular, even Donegal to a lesser extent, Tyrone, there's no doubt about it, they don't have a kicking game in transition. Kerry, yes, they pass the ball through the lines, but they're kicking the ball, and this year they're kicking the ball a lot more. But the second point is, with Kerry, you have up front, you have David Clifford or whoever like that, and what Kerry are doing is they have the 3 boys inside, and they're moving the ball quick and long and fast via kicking. And you look at Dylan Gainey's second goal last Saturday night now, and this is Kerry, simple, common sense approach. Paul Murphy gets a free, he kicks the ball 50, 60 yards. Shawnee gets it, quick hands to David. David's looking up, the ball is transferred over to Dylan Gainey, goal. So that's the new rules. It has certainly improved. Like, it has worked oracles for it because it's a forwards game. And if you get the ball quick and long and fast into space, you'll do it. I agree with Dick. Actually, the amount of goal scoring up to this weekend wasn't great. And I agree with you, Dick. I still think 2 things about the new rules. A goal should be rewarded with 4 points. And secondly, the 2-point rule, the 2 points, I don't think the ball should be brought out to 2 points for a technical foul. I think that's unfair. But the second thing is, and this comes back with what is bothering me, and again this weekend, with the way the weather has been for this year's National League, atrocious conditions, but exceptionally strong winds that you probably won't get in summer. So I'm looking at the game. So for the David Cliffords and the Shawnee O'Shea's and these boys, the Michael Langans and the Paul Conroys, and a 2-point from outside the 40 by these boys is only a gimme putt. It's a stroke over. And I'm looking at, so I'm not too sure. Like, I'm looking at the games and I'm looking at the players and I'm saying, I don't know, can I really analyse them? Am I getting a true picture of what this game is all about a team's ability? Because the key, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, the key seems to be about which team can adapt to the weather conditions as quickly as possible. And there's no doubt about it. I think it's like you have the ball for 30 minutes, you have the wind, and away you go, score as much as you can. And in the second half, the other team gets the ball and you try to score. And there's it's lacking a little bit of the to and fro and the tit for tat, and you're getting two contrasting halves. And I was just looking at some of the score lines from the weekend and the influence of the weather. Antrim against Waterford, 2-13 to 4 points at halftime. Antrim are winning by 15 points. Wexford against Clare, 118 to 6 points at halftime, 15-point lead. Westmeath against Limerick in the second half, 2-15 to 1-3, 15 points. Wicklow against Tipperary, first half, 2-15 to 3 points, 18 points. Kerry against Mayo in the second half, 2-16 to 9 points, 11 points. Cork versus Kildare in the first half, 122 to 1-6, 16-point lead. So it's sort of, I'm still trying to get a handle on it. I just think weather conditions have just played such a huge role in, and there's no doubt about it. The two-pointer is what's deciding all the games. And you looked at Cork, 8 two-pointers in the first half the last day. Meath, 8 two-pointers in the game. Kerry, 6 2-5. Wexford are in line. Very interesting stat. Wexford are in line for promotion. Huge game next weekend, next Sunday against Westmeath. Winner gets up to Division 2. 40% of Wexford scores have come from two-pointers. So two-pointers huge. Goals deserve to be 4 points. But weather conditions are just... I can't get a handle on it.
But to the broader point, and again, it's early and not to be, we're only a couple of months into season 2 of the new rules, but eating bread is soon forgotten. We're not now comparing the game to what it was 2 years ago. We're comparing it, is it sitting and as it enjoy, because the wow factor, the novelty of the new rules is gone now. I'm sitting at games and I'm watching them, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just narky because I'm not in everything, but Conán, you were sort of half agreeing with me there. Just this sort of score fest is almost getting, like, hurling had a problem there, and it still arguably has. It was just sort of tip-tap, endless points, and that, people say, oh, more scores equals more enjoyment. Not necessarily. And is it the case that there's almost teams sacrificing the half if they don't got the win? Sit back, let's just keep it to 10 points and we have a shot. And you're seeing a lot of that, and it's a case of I'm not enthralled by it as I was at the start, and is that a worrying trend, or is it just something that's season? I don't know. That's me open.
You're right,
I don't know what you think. Yeah,
I think it's probably weather conditions, but like I said, I was talking to Tadhg Morley now last night. Actually, sorry, we were getting on it. Timpano won the county. You talk about high scoring. Timpano won the county junior football title in 1975. And the team, we were honoured last night by... Now, don't ask me why they honour a 51st anniversary of a try.
Somebody forgot to do it last year. That's what happened. Paddy says, "Oh, fuck it, we can't. If we leave it to 75, then I'll be dead." So we had to do it for 51.
But the scoreline, they gave us a printout of the match report. I can't remember much about it. The scoreline was 1-5 to 1-3. That was it. Played in the Fitzgerald Stadium in Killarney. But yeah, the conditions, I'm not too sure. I just... but then you look at, right, and it does, you're starting to say, all right, Armagh have the wind in the first half and they have to rack up 20 points and in the second half. But I was looking at the game management against the wind, and an awful lot of teams, and this is the point I'm trying to make with Conan's team, Derry. I watched the Derry Louth game at the weekend. Derry played against the wind in the first half, and they had more possession than Louth in that first half. Yeah. I can't remember the exact stats. But their build, it was all about game management, it was all about keeping possession, it was all about running down the clock. And they never, and it was slow and lateral, and they never asked any questions about Louth. And then fast forward to Sunday, and you saw Roscommon and Donegal. And in the second half, Roscommon are against the wind, and 2 points ahead, Donegal are in the ascendancy, and yet for the last 20 minutes, Roscommon outscored Donegal 1-6 to 4 points. And why did they do that? Number one, they went at Donegal's kickouts. Number two, they forced Donegal into turnovers, which is unusual, but it happened against Galway as well. But number three, they ran it, Donegal. Especially like Indo Smith was spectacular running at the defence. And you're sort of saying, teams playing against the wind, that I still see too many teams who are playing in fear and want to run down the clock. I mean, Kerry played against the wind in Tralee on Saturday night, and they were winning by 2 or 3 points at half time. And at one stage in the first half, they kicked 8 unanswered points, which is some... So teams are adjusting, but it's that weather. You're right, Dick. I'm not too sure whether... I think wait until after the summer when... in summer, 2 points won't play as big a role because it won't be as windy. We're seeing... It's still a...
Yeah, to Dick's point, the act of kicking the ball isn't that amazing to look at, especially unchallenged, unless it's outside of the boot, unless it's from a tight angle. But it's the working of the score which is more interesting. Actually working a one-pointer when you're surrounded by defenders is more interesting. But people standing back and kicking, for me, they did that survey before they changed the rules, and over 90% of people said they wanted to see more long-range scores. It's they didn't. The long-range scores used to be better because somebody had the balls to take it on when it was worth the same as a 13 meter.
It was a rare breed.
Exactly. Yeah. It was oh my God, if he missed that, his head was on the chopping block, but he did it. Now you're doing it, and you might as well do it because it's worth twice as much. You're not going to get given out to.
But Conan, on a calm, beautiful summer's day in the middle of June or July, I can bet you that the number of 2-pointers will be well down because players will be reluctant. Players will be reluctant. It's a gimme. It's a gimme putt with the wind behind you. It's a tap over from 40 yards.
Yeah. So we're talking about 2-pointers there, Armagh and Dublin. I think what was interesting here about Armagh, Pat, you're so bang on. Armagh came out in the second half and their attacking line was so far back. So I think Dublin were told, protect that arc. And Armagh weren't even anywhere near the arc. They were about 10 metres back behind it. They were 10 metres wider of it, and they were just throwing the ball around there and kicking the ball over. But it was some comeback. I mean, Dublin were actually quite good for 45 minutes. And then they just disappeared, and Armagh ramped up the pressure. And even when they went down to 14 men, they outscored Dublin, and they have a bit of robustness about them. They move the ball well, but they're tough mentally as well.
No, their second half. I mean, this is the second match in a row, was it? That, I mean, if you can remember, Kieran McGeeney was complaining after the Roscommon, where Roscommon went into a big lead early on, and he said, geez, they never got off the bus for the first 25 minutes. And again, the first 12 minutes in Croke Park last week, there was only one team in it. Dublin were full of running, playing high tempo, great attitude, great scores, 1-7 to 2 points up. And Armagh 9 points down. But like getting back to Connacht's goal, McConville goal you mentioned earlier on was a lovely goal as well. Some of the goals, and it was the different types of goal. You mentioned Ethan Jordan's goal, which was outside of the right, inside of the right foot into the top corner. You looked at young Lynch's goals for Aaron Lynch's goals for Meath. And
the Jordan Morris pass there was just incredible.
But they were placed into the goal. They were, a bit like Gooch used to do it, a bit like Peter Canavan. They passed into the goal. But like Connacht's goal, but what would annoy me if I was a Dublin manager? I counted again this morning. There was 5 defenders between Connacht and the goal, but it could have been 5 statues because he just slalomed around them. That was a brilliant goal, but he was going for it. He was really going for it. But and it was an excellent performance. Now it was an excellent, for a team who had scored 1 goal in 5 matches, they rattled in 2 goals last week, and just they were very good. But if I was a Dublin manager, oh geez, when they needed leadership, when Armagh got the run on them, when they needed leaders to stand up, they didn't have them. But every time I look, okay, without Con, they're an ordinary team. But I keep looking at the names on the starting 15, and there's too many of them, and I say, geez, they're ordinary footballers. So it's Dublin I'm looking at Leinster Championship this year now, and at the moment, based on form, Meath have been a revelation. Louth have really come on. They're very, very impressive. It's a 3-horse race there in Leinster, and it's a toss-up.
What do you think here? It seems to me that Dublin, I don't think they're as bad as people are making out, and I just feel like they need whipped into shape a little bit. And maybe Ger Brennan's the right man to do that. I mean, he is really taking them to task on their leadership and their mentality and attitude, I think, and maybe that's what they need, and it's going to take a bit of time to get there.
Yeah, I suppose that when you look at their league, there's 6 games in under Ger Brennan. So we'll just look at it within the confines of that and forget about it. And there's almost a case of, yes, it's sort of pocketed with All-Ireland winners and guys who have great CVs, but it's largely made up of guys that are on a bit of a learning path.
Yeah.
And it's as a group, it sort of smacks of immaturity. There's quality in there that when the cards fall, you get the peaks that we would have seen against, say, Roscommon, and say the way they might have finished against Monaghan. But yet, old money, new money, it doesn't matter. That was a 15-point swing at home.
Yep.
They were 11 points up. That just shouldn't happen. No team, any Division 2 team that's a wee bit more sort of wily wouldn't have allowed that happen. There are still ways and means to control a game, to slow it down. Even from Ger Brennan's, when your thing's going away from you got to make change. You just got to sort of stem the flow and tide. So there's a lot of immaturity there in terms of game management that we've seen, and that's going to be so there is obviously there's ability there and there's potential, and you've got players there that on their day they're as good. But the problem is as any player that gets older will tell you, though, people still read off the CV and the bio, not what's actually in the legs on that given day. So with the likes of Kieran Kilkenny, we seen against Roscommon, he got man of the match. Against other games, he struggled. So you can't rely on those guys to turn up and deliver a sort of a 9 out of 10 to get them over the line. They're going to have to find a level of consistency, and that's the challenge. To win any competition, whether it is to stay up in Division 1, win a Leinster title, you have to have consistency. You got to put back to back. We talked about it, Pat. We said that 2 weeks ago when we spoke, to put in the performance against Roscommon, and I said I'll hold judgment on Dublin until the Armagh game, and for a large part, I think at 40 minutes, they had backed it up. Unfortunately, game's not won after 40 minutes, it's won after 70. My dad was down at the game, he was working at it, and he was saying people were leaving 10 minutes into the second half. Now, I'd say that was probably a lot of travelling support, the sort of from the previous game. We're heading up the road, but Dublin looked comfortable. Armagh looked like they weren't at the races, and yet they still managed to
but you're right.
So that's a massive concern, because that's something that's very uncontrollable from Ger Brennan's. Even though we can do some things on the pitch, if a team can't find a way to sort of not allow a 11-point lead get back to a 4-point defeat, that's another worrying sign.
But you talk about potential, and I asked myself the question: can I see potential in that Dublin team? Can I see have they introduced some good young talent. No, they haven't. I just see a Dublin team that's reliant on Scully and Howard and Bugler and Paddy Small and, of course, Con and Kieran McGeeney. And I'm contrasting that. And with Kerry...
But you put, Pat, just very simple, you put Kieran McGeeney and Con on that team on Saturday night, they're still winning that game. Do you know what I mean? And that's two players at their disposal, good enough. That's the sort of level of control and composure that they were missing on the pitch. And so they still have that. Whether they can get them at their best, fully fit, that remains to be seen.
But the point I'm trying to make, and I contrasted with Kerry, is that it's still reliant on the same old fellas, right? These boys have bundles of medals in their pockets, a lot of mileage in their pocket. Are they prepared? Are they willing? Are they able to go to the well for another one? And I contrast that with Kerry, and I'll tell you this now. The biggest failing that you'd always lay at Jack down through the years was he was very loyal to the same bunch of fellas. And Jack might give fellas a couple of games in the McGrath Cup and maybe a first round of the league. But when all the boys were back, Jack would be back with the old reliables and they'd play every game. And this year, I'm looking... People ask me, is there a difference this year? There's a difference with Kerry in their kicking game. They're trying to kick the ball more. They're trying to get it fast and long into the full forward line, right? That's number one. But the second thing I see this year, very noticeable this year, is that Jack has introduced a lot of young players. But instead of jettisoning them after one game, he's still using them. And he's mixing the young and the established in every game. And what that has meant is, for the first time ever, outside of the Cliffords and Shawnee and Tom Sullivan, outside of 4 or 5, there is now serious competition for places with Kerry. Shane Murphy is putting Shane Ryan under pressure in goal, so you have him vying for goalie. Tyg Morley has been rejuvenated as a defender and is in contention to start. He didn't last year. Amric Heinrich has been the best defender of the league. He didn't get any All-Ireland final appearance last year. You look at centre field, Killian Trant. You look at Keith Evans. You look at Paul Ganey trying to come back after a brilliant club championship. You look at Tomas Kennedy. And for the first time in a long time, there is huge competition for places. And what does that mean? That is putting everyone on their toes, and they're all that little bit hungry, that little bit motivated, and it stands in good stead for Kerry for the championship because they have a serious panel and serious competition. I don't think Dublin have.
But back to Dublin, you can't keep dragging every conversation back to Kerry. Good knowledge is art of it, Pat. Right, that's you done for the day.
Yes, I promise not to mention. I didn't mention man, and I just got it.
I haven't get there yet. No, we'll give a fair assessment. But like Dublin, there's still. You look at the guys that played. You had Davy Byrne, Merchant, Brian Howard, Sean Bugler, Paddy Small, Niall Scully, and then Kilkenny came on. Conor Costello came on. Like, there's enough there. Right, there's enough there to build newcomers in, and that they should be able to sort of shape a team and tradition. So even with all this, but again, it begs the question, right? So I'm naming names there that are, there's a couple of Hall of Famers there, right? Yeah. But it's age, it's appetite, it's desire, it's hunger, all that sort of stuff, and that's the sort of mix that Brennan is probably struggling with. I have these guys, they're here, they're turning up, they're probably trying hard in training, but just when the thing's going against you, have you still got that extra half yard that you had 5 years ago to clamp a man down? A hungry Armagh, a hungry Kerry, whoever it is you're playing, that's just what's the question mark at the minute. And he just hasn't answered it yet, and they've got a tough game next weekend to stay up, you know. Like,
in fairness, what you've just done, Dick has agreed with me, because you've just named all. Now, to be fair, you've just named all the same bunch of fellas. These boys have been there. These haven't been in the All-Ireland final for a couple of years. These lads couldn't reach the Leinster final last year.
But the narrative that Dublin is a massive team in transition, and all these guys have gone, doesn't really stack up when you sort of line 8 or 9 of these guys up, and they've got, you know, bucket loads of All-Ireland medals and All-Stars. So you know.
That's the point I'm making. That's you come up with a lot of All-Ireland medals. I've said this a million times. Jim Gavin, how he could keep a team motivated for 6 in a row was absolutely unbelievable. But I'm not too sure. Like you need to have youngsters coming through that are vying for positions, that are playing great football. But none of them, they seem to be good club players, but just lacking in that standard that Dublin required. And you mentioned the defenders, and you say, Davy Byrne, Davy's plus, the age. Merchant is certainly not playing the football he did 4 or 5 years ago. Do you know, Brian Howard is not the player he was of a couple of years ago. So, you know, there's a lot of looking in the past at their record rather than looking at what we see in front of us now. And I'm not ruling them out or anything.
No, like green shoots, right? Because that's what Ger and Dublin people have to do now. They were still 11 points up against Armagh, and that's a damn good Armagh team that was going down with their own backs against the wall. So there is something there. As you say, we'll come to other teams that don't even have that. They don't have the ability to get 10 points ahead of good teams. My own county in case in point. So there's something there that when they click and they're tuned in and they're moving, they can get it. It's getting a 70-minute performance together and doing it back to back. That's just what he can't do. He hasn't found at the minute.
I think the back to back is that, because I think that's awesome. I genuinely think the next players coming in aren't as bad as being made out. Like, I think if you dropped Killian McGuinness into Donegal, where everybody knows what they're doing and everybody's seasoned, and it's a regime that's been there for a long
standard.
time.
It's an impossible standard. You're comparing boys to Brian Fentons of this world. Where do you go?
But I think McGuinness would be raved about. I think Brack not going anywhere else. I mean, like, Joe Quigley ripped it up against Monaghan. Nobody really talked about him beforehand or afterwards. Like, they're able to do this, but I think they just need a running game. They haven't had this. So you had Desi Farrell trying to squeeze the last ounce out of the Jim Gavin era the whole time he was there, and they didn't really get a proper run, and then they had a load of retirements. So I think actually going to Division 2 wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for this Dublin team, because I think they'd have 7 games.
Possibly not. It'll be a short term down there, you'd imagine, and it'll get a level of that. Now, will it keep the other guys? The problem is, I listed off 7 or 8 names. Are they going to stick another year in Division 2 when it's a team in transition? That's the fear for.
But you mentioned it there, Dick. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, you can talk about Killian McGuinness and somebody ripping it up against Monaghan, but like, with all due respects, I won't even go there. But anyway, like, you're looking at fellas coming in to replace Brian Finton, Paul Mannion, Jack McCaffrey, and these boys. Like, it's mission impossible. And like I said, they're trying to replace unbelievable footballers, and they're going into it with established players who are certainly in the decline, whose best days are behind them, with the possible exception.
That's no insult. That just happens. That happens every place.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're being honest about it, because we can talk about green shoots and they might do better in Division 2, but we're looking at the moment, and I'm saying, are they in the top 3 or 4 contenders for the All-Ireland? No, they're not. Do they look like they could be? No, they don't at the moment, based on the evidence I'm looking at. And yes, if you talk about going down to Division 2, and Dublin won an All-Ireland out of Division 2 before. Armagh won an All-Ireland out of Division 2, but it doesn't necessarily mean. You look at Tyrone, who are gone down to Division 2, and they're going to be in Division 2 for another year.
Yeah, Mayo, Kerry, you've already touched on it a couple of times there, Pat, but I was watching, you said about how impressive Louth were, and I watched that game as well, and I was looking at it, and it was RD, and there was a big wind. I started thinking again, maybe it's the Ulster man in me. I was like, Jesus, maybe this zonal defence isn't as bad as everybody's making out to be, because Gavin Devlin and Louth seem to have it really well done, but Derry were stationary. And then I forgot about David Clifford, and I forgot about Sean O'Shea, and I forgot about what happens when a team is moving the ball fast and they've got threats from all over, and mainly David Clifford. I think, like...
Well, I think, Conán, you have to, like, I said it at the start of the program, top of the program, that I believe that was the best display by any team in the National League so far. But their attacking stats from last week's game was just unreal. It was off the charts. 229 they scored. They had 26 shots from play. They scored with 25 of them. Their shooting efficiency was 97%. And they didn't shoot a wide in the second half. It was unbelievable football. And yet, at the same time, you say, I look at it, why was it so good? It was attacking football at its very best. There was depth in attack. There was wit in attack. They were creating space. They were getting runners into that space. Their movement on and off the ball were brilliant. 1-2s, decision-making, option-taking, all correct, and a beautiful kicking game. It was a masterclass. It was albeit against a team like Mayo, who didn't turn up on the day, never performed. And just actually one little thing about it, I think I told you about our presentation last night, and I was talking to Tyke Morley. I was just interested in saying, what was his take on Kobe? And Kobe he mixed the good with the bad. But the one thing he said about Kobe, he said, he has something about him. He says he has something about him. He's a real class player. Coming from Kerry now, that's high praise indeed.
Yeah, but you talked about a couple of those balls that were going in, and like it's not like other coaches I think can replicate it, because the Paul Murphy pass you talked about, I wouldn't call it a pass. I would call it hit the ball in, see what happens. Like put it on to the forwards, but the forwards are Sean O'Shea and David Clifford, and they're going up and winning the ball, and other teams aren't going to do that because they're not going to have as good a chance.
But Conan is called common sense. It's called common sense. If you have your star forwards inside close to goal, well, you obviously get the ball in. And doomsday scenario, if you can't get an accurate pass in, you do like Paul Murphy did, and you kick the ball high in. And you're talking about David Clifford, who's the biggest guy in the Kerry team, who has unbelievable levers of arms, who can either win possession, or if not, there's a break. The ball is in the danger zone. The chances of scoring are high. Where there's a lot of other teams that are recycling and going over and back and trying to set up a screen and then going over and back again. Where Kerry are just that little bit more direct. But it was a masterclass. It was an absolute masterclass.
If you're Andy Moore,
too soon, no, Pat. I think Ulster's coming for you.
Yeah,
I think Jimmy's coming for you. And wouldn't it be great? I'm just looking. I'm trying to. Pat was talking, and needless to say, I had plenty of time to look up here. That what were the permutations for the league? Like, look, I'd love Kerry Donegal final, just on its own, one-off fixture, a precursor to what might be in June and July, and both teams go at it for nothing else. Just to cap off a great league for both sides. Wouldn't it be great? And here McGuinness already out. We're not that bothered. Just like, because they're going to beat Monaghan, so they're going to be in it. And I just hope Kerry go up and beat Armagh, and it's going to be a great day out, because it's been a great league for both teams, and it doesn't need to be anything more than a one-off game. You can park it after it, and there's no bragging rights. But both teams, for what they've put into the league, and you're right, Kerry have been fantastic. Equally have Donegal by streets ahead, the two best teams in the country, because you mightn't actually get to see them. Armagh what? Armagh may be relegated. I'm talking about, right, right.
Armagh are in that top two equation.
I'm talking about the potentially, in terms of who's actually doing it, winning games, closing things out, getting points on the board. It's Donegal and Kerry, and I just love now if it was a league final to finish, because it's the game we all want to see. Will we see it again in June, July? I'm not sure. It'd be great to see, because
it's very interesting. It's something I was thinking about for the last week, and I said, like Kerry going to Division 1, and the first priority is they don't want to get relegated, right? That's usually the first. And then after that, all right, okay, if we're not going to get relegated, I wonder, will we try to win a league title? And if you can remember last year, they sort of accidentally got into the final, and then they won a league title. They actually they were in danger of relegation around in the fifth or sixth round. But anyway, I'm trying to figure out, will they take it serious? And you know, I was thinking about something down in Kerry. Kerry fellas like their pishogues, their superstition. And Jack likes his pishogue. And I'm just thinking, Jack has won 5 All-Ireland titles with Kerry. Guess what? In all those 5 years, they have also won the league title. He has always put the double back-to-back.
And I'm looking at many counties that won a league look back and said, oh God, that league cost us an All-Ireland. I've never heard that.
And Jack is now looking at, right, I know what the question is saying, right, do we really need to get to a league final? And then he's also saying, if we get to the league final, we're playing Donegal. Am I showing my hand to Jimmy McGuinness, because we might be playing them again? Because, as you know, he didn't send David Clifford to
memo to Jack. We know about David Clifford.
But I just think,
Jack, there's nothing we haven't seen, you know.
Yeah, but knowing Jack is such a driven. He likes the pishogue, but he's such a driven individual. Remember, Jack has never put no different than Mickey Hart. Jack has never put All-Ireland titles back to back. And I think now that he has momentum and a winning run, he'll be trying to put the league title and then put an All-Ireland title. And at the moment, yes, they're favourites. Would I be rushing out to the bank and putting my shirt on them? No, because Donegal will be there, Armagh will be there. And maybe there's a kick in Galway. Maybe they're getting organised. But
hang on. We're forgetting about one county.
The benefit, we'll come back. We'll put a cap on that bit of it to see that from a Kerry point of view, it's different from other counties. They have near enough an 8-week gap between the league final and their next. And I'm not to be unfair to Clare, they will compete well, but they will not beat Kerry to a Munster final. So he's an awful lot of time to fill, and what better way to fill it than a league title in a competitive game in Croke Park, which arguably Kerry have done in plenty of years. So it's why wouldn't he? As the man says, why wouldn't he go and play it and go play to win? Because there's
And you're both forgetting about one county, one of the most impressive counties, Roscommon. Like, somebody put cold water on me here because the hype train is in full flow. Honestly,
we forgot. We just hadn't got to them yet. We're saving them. Yeah.
And I know you're watching these games and you're like, oh, you know what, where are Donegal at? I immediately got suspicious, thinking, are Donegal just in a heavy training block? Then McGuinness says they haven't trained at all. And it's probably truth is probably somewhere in between. And he did say they're not worried if they don't make the league final. You know, some of the stuff that you would sort of think anyway. But although you might touch on this, Dick, but I think Monaghan might push them towards a league final. But Roscommon are flying. And the thing is, like, the new rules suit Roscommon because you have defenders that can cope one-on-one, and they have deadly forwards. You've both mentioned them before, and they have that sort of instinct in them as well, where there's an easy point that somebody else, I mean, I think it was the first goal that I think it's Kieran McGeeney's goal. Dara Craig throws it back inside because he thinks we can get a goal here, and they were very impressive against Donegal.
Yeah, and listen, we've said the new rules. It seems to be like Sir Jim Murtaugh's got a bit of a second wind. And the Smith boys that were they starting to taper in latter years, they've got a lift from it. Listen, Roscommon are, and the same applies that we've said 2 or 3 times already this league. It's not the first time that they've shown themselves to be a good, solid team that's very hard to beat in the hide, and they can produce some big performances. They've done that, right? And Sunday's game was no different. The thing I want to see from Roscommon is sustaining that, and not wilting when the ground hardens in the summer, because they have done that same group of players. But they have, and the Bridget boys are coming back in, you know, Conán, these, so they have a panel which is crucially important to compete at all. You know, it's not just having your best teams out on a good day to compete over the course of the summer, and even to compete and sustain it in a Division 1 campaign. You need a panel. You need boys that can sort of come in and do a job. If they pick up an injury, that you're not, you know, your team and their performance levels haven't been impacted. So they're ticking a lot of boxes, and they've got a new manager bounce. So there's an awful lot going with them now, and they're going to. Actually, the way the results fall, if Kerry don't go up, correct me if I'm wrong here, Kerry don't go up and beat Armagh in the athletic grounds, which won't be easy, Pat, because you bigged up Armagh, not me, and that's Armagh have to win it. Yeah. If Roscommon beat Mayo, Roscommon could be in a league final. Isn't that correct? Yep. Which is all very plausible. So and that's a massive card, like whatever, but anybody else, if Roscommon get to a National League final, they'll be going guns blazing. And it just makes me think, we'll come to Monaghan in a minute, like less than 12 months ago, Monaghan were running that Roscommon team ragged in a Division 2 league final in Croke Park, and look at how the partying of the waves can happen. So there's something going right in Roscommon. They seem to have great buy-in. There's great team spirit. They've got that was like the betting and running that game on Sunday. There's no way you were putting money on Roscommon holding that Donegal team out against the breeze. You just when Langan and McGee started, you know, flicking balls over from 40 yards to 2-pointers, you just thought, there's just no way they can sustain this. As Pat said, what do you do against the breeze? You run at it, you attack it. You don't allow the other team to just throw it about and pick you off. You go at them, and the space now is there to breach. You can't sort of just, you know, you can't close down the defence if you go at it. And I'd say there was an element of Donegal possibly didn't expect it and got caught sitting on their heels a few times. And to be fair to them, Roscommon came through, especially for that goal. Like, that was sloppy defending from Donegal. Like McGuinness, there's a few boys just sort of switched off, and next thing it was a 3-on-1 or so. That shouldn't be happening. That's very un-Donegal. Like, so maybe there was an element they thought, we just have to keep going here, with the breeze will win this for us, and it didn't. But that was down to Roscommon as much as anything. There was a couple of times Sen and Lamb was
shaped to shoot on the 40, and this is probably something more people could use, because people are so worried about the 2-pointer that he was being charged down. And he slips inside. He looks like a corner forward when he does it, and he taps over a handy one there. Sorry, Pat, what were you saying?
Yeah, but you know, we've been here before talking about Roscommon and bigging them up with a good league campaign, and they have flattered to deceive. So, like, the question about this Roscommon team, which is not answered and we won't answer for a while, can they bring that consistency that they often show in the league to championship? And they haven't so far. I agree with what Dick has said. There's no doubt about it. You look at the forwards, there's 3 forwards there that would get on any county team. Dara Craig, Diarmuid Murtagh, and Indo GAA. and throw in the likes of Conor Hand and Ben O'Carroll and those, and they have serious forwards. In actual fact, as a useless stat, 13 goals scored in Division 1, which was the highest of all. And like I said, their attitude, their work rate, their composure. Donegal, it looked all over at half-time. It certainly looked all over with 20 minutes to go when Donegal brought it to 2 points. Even with 10 minutes to go, Donegal brought it to 1 point. But these boys, the composure, they went at it. Like, I think there wasn't a point in it, and they went at the kick out and they turned it over, got a score. In the Smith ran at them. It was just like, it was a masterclass in how to play against the wind. But at the same time, you look at Donegal, and we talk about Donegal, they were poor. I mean, when you take out Shane O'Donnell, and even to a lesser extent, and Oisin Gallen, Shane O'Donnell is really one of the key players in that. And like, bear in mind, they had most of the rest of them yesterday, so they were quite disappointing, particularly in that second half. I would have expected to win. I noticed one thing, like, and you'll say we've talked about how they've changed and they've evolved from being a low block and a zonal defence, and they're pressing out and whatever like that. We know that they have good kickers from 2 points. But one thing that they are quite poor at is they're not scoring goals. They didn't score a goal yesterday. They've only scored 3 goals in 6 matches, which is a fairly miserable total for a team that dominates possession. I still think sometimes with Donegal, and like, we know they're brilliant with their running game, their angles of running, their support play, their zigzag. And I just think maybe sometimes, I still think, I said it last year and I'll say it again this year, I still think they need more of a kicking game and transition instead of the usual Paddy Morgan running up the field, Finn Barrorty, Ryan McHugh, whatever like that. I just think they need more of a kicking game.
And what's going on with Monaghan? Dick, I saw Gabriel Bannigan say afterwards that it's lucky that they were in Division 1 because they could have been relegated to Division 3 with what's been going on this season.
And he's not wrong. And I have huge respect for Gabriel. He's a genuinely good Monaghan man, and he would be just gutted and he'd be embarrassed. No point in saying otherwise. It's a very humbling experience for him. But there's an element. We spoke a couple of weeks ago, Pat, and I was a bit, in hindsight, a bit prickly and defensive around Monaghan. And
I'll accept your apology. No,
I didn't say I apologise. I just said to reflect on my and I was sort of thinking about it this last couple of weeks. One of the things that really bugged me when Monaghan were going well and competing is that we never got properly criticised and properly analysed. When we got to maybe a quarter-final or a semi-final and lost, people like yourself, Pat, and other commentators, they sort of felt, listen, they're doing fierce well, plucky Monaghan, punched above the weight, that sort of old trope. And that was it. If you've been honest, Pat, that was it. And you never got the same criticism that, say, Donegal got after losing to Kerry or Tyrone would have got. You were sort of, that never helped us in terms of making the next step, because you never took on any criticism. You weren't been pushed to go that next 10% because it was okay to be at that level. So am I going to do the same in my role now? Am I going to give the sort of old platitudes and make excuses for them? That would be wrong, because at the same time, yes, they're short-stacked. They've lost players. They're still not doing enough. I'm getting very frustrated watching Monaghan playing that they're not working hard enough. Even if they might lose the game, that they're just going out with a whimper. Like, they're getting completely steamrolled at home against teams that I can't remember the last time we got so badly beaten by them as happened that long, against teams that had, there's a lot of good players there for Monaghan will know themselves when they're sitting in the dressing room, we're not performing here, and we're not playing. There's a lack of character. There's a lack of what made Monaghan good there in players, and I think they're going to need to find it, because Gabriel's right. That performance, that attitude, you'll be a Division 3 team, and if you think you're in irrelevance this year, it's a very lonely place, as you know, Pat, down in Division 3, when nobody's talking about you, nobody's putting you on live TV games on a Sunday. Hard and all they are to watch at the minute, it's still a privileged place to be. So there's a bit of reflection on it at the minute, and they need to really look at themselves, and the only people can pull it out is themselves. They can't talk about people who've retired and played for 15, 16, 17 seasons. They've done what they could. There's players there that know that there's more there, and we just need to see it. And I suppose I'm saying that now, Pat, because I was too prickly and too defensive, and that's no good for any team.
Yeah, I accept your point, and I would agree. I've been in that boat most of the time that you tend to be patronising to certain counties, and Monaghan would be one of them because of low population base and whatever like that. And when we go overboard on them, when they lose, we probably give them a free pass maybe sometimes. And like, I get it, a small county, I get it, something like 20 players are gone in the last couple of years. It's under strength. And I get it, they're playing in Division 1. But I do agree with you, the character and attitude and whatever like that is lacking. And I just look at, like, you look at, again, and we talked about down in Killarney playing with a gale force wind and how bad they were in the first half. I mean, they played with a really strong wind in Enniskeane yesterday. They got 4 points. 2 points from play. That's inexcusable. And when you look at their stats, you look at the stats of all the counties in the National Football League, Monaghan stats make for dismal reading. I mean, in terms of defending, they have the second worst defensive record in the league after Offaly. In terms of attacking, they're could imagine, this is Monaghan who were the highest scorers in the league last year. Monaghan this year are the second lowest scorers in the league, only Watford the worst. I mean, that's inexcusable. And I know, and Sligo are struggling and will be. Sligo played Monaghan last week, 10 days ago in a challenge and beat them. Now, I don't know what sort of strength teams, but it's tough. And like you said, you could drift down very easy down to 3, and I agree with you, Dick. In Division 3, you're completely forgotten.
It's a lonely spot. It's a lonely spot. Like simple markers, like there wasn't one. And again, Bally gave out to me at the gate. Don't be going on the radio, Pat, now saying you should have started the round. I said, no, I'm not going to say that. But at the same time, not one Monaghan player got a yellow card. That's a level of what intensity and aggression are you trying to bring to the game that you might sometimes step over the line playing up to it. You know, we markers there to sort of to show where the team's head are at. So I need to see more of that. Like Donegal's coming down next Sunday to Clonus. Like, I'm 20 years both playing and watching. We've always been toe to toe with Donegal. Less than 12 months ago, 9 months ago, we were 7 points ahead in an All-Ireland quarter final against this Donegal team.
Jesus, yeah.
And this is how stark it is. And yes, there is a change over players, but there's not that massive a changeover either. There was still 8 or 9 players on the pitch there on the Sunday that were way off what it needs to be a Monaghan footballer. So I want to see it. I'm not worried about the result next weekend. I do not want a Donegal team coming down. Like, too many teams have done sauntering about the place, picking up 25, 30 points and skipping off to Croke Park. I do not want to see that, and those Monaghan players need to show a wee bit more that doesn't happen.
But you're right, Dick. I actually, written in my notes, I have defence, one word, passive. And you're right. There was no hitting, no belts, no nothing. No contact. Get under their skin. Let them know you're in a game.
I remember going down to watch when David Clifford were starting out. Remember Monaghan used to bring Kerry to Enniskeane. Remember those games, Pat? Like it was on Sunday, a horrible, dirty day, and people used to give out and all the Paddy Kavanagh jokes and tropes that would be put out, and David Clifford would get dogs abuse. He got absolute dogs abuse, and Monaghan would beat them and send them down the road.
So, Dick, how do you change that attitude or mindset now? What do you do?
Yeah. I think there's a wee bit of facing up. There's a few senior players there that they're in their early 30s. They need to show leadership. They need to bring that next generation, remind themselves what Monaghan had to do to compete at the top, and it wasn't just been good enough at footballers. We always had good footballers, but we had to have the work ethic and a bit of needle and a wee bit of work and graft to compete with the top. You take that out, you're a very average team, which we've seen, and I would have seen when I was playing on days when you thought you were better than you were and you stepped back collectively, you got it handed to you and you might have slipped back. So just back to old values. You know, Eamon Coleman, I'll never forget, God rest him, he done a session about 20 years ago. Pink Banty brought him in, and it stuck with me, and I've repeated it 100 times over to different clubs. On your worst day, he used to say, and his big Derry broke, you'd have probably heard this before. On your worst day, he said, you can still run and tackle. You can always work. Yeah. Some days the ball comes to you, some days the scores come off, but even on your worst day, you can. And I kept that for my 15-year career. Even if there's days that I couldn't kick a snow over rope, I'd work and I'd tackle and I'd do something. So you can always default to that. And you know what? We're not seeing enough of that from Monaghan, and that's why their stats are the way they are. That's why they're getting the Haydens that they are, and that's why poor Gabriel Bannigan is so frustrated as he is, because he knows there's more there, even with the players that are gone.
You're right, and it's something Dwyer used to mention every now and again, no different than what Eamon Coleman, that he was always instilling in us that we leave it all on the field. We come off the field with no regrets, that we've given our all in 100%. And you're right, and I see the present Kerry team, and I see the leaders, and you're talking about the lack of leaders in Monaghan, and I see in Kerry with Shawnee O'Shea and David Clifford, and I know Shawnee well. He is an unbelievable leader on and off the field that drives standards, that's not happy with underperformance, that's not happy with sloppy play. And the Shawnees and the Davids, that's the culture that they drive in Kerry, and that's the culture that's instilled. And you're right, if you don't have leaders on the field, and obviously it looks like Monaghan don't have the leaders, it's very hard then to get the attitude right.
But at the same time, very impressed with Galway. I wanted to see them in the flesh. I hadn't seen them in the flesh in a few years to sort of see this sort of, Pádraig Joyce version 2 or 5.0. Like their defence, whatever bit up front, it was sort of a blustery wind. It was hard to get going. Like, geez, I was very impressed with them at the back. Like they have, like say Jack Glynn, Silk, McGrath, Kelly.
McGrath, yeah.
Cute. These boys are good footballers. Good. Like they've got all and they're. Monaghan just could not break them down, couldn't get through them at all, and that was yes, Monaghan didn't put up much. But as a Galway defence, and we talked about their defence before. Like they're around a few years now, and they're very comfortable in their own skin. They're very comfortable man to man. They're very comfortable if it's collective, and very accomplished. Nothing fancy about Donegal or Galway yesterday. They just done the job and done what they had to do.
Pádraig Joyce getting a lot of due praise afterwards. He was talking about John Daly playing for his club. So his rule is if they're not in the 26, they go play for their clubs. And people are right to credit him for it. He said if they're not allowed to play club games, they end up not playing anything for a couple of months, which I totally am against. And
absolutely.
And I'm against it too. But I hate that Pádraig Joyce stands out for this.
No. Can I just say, Jack is very much. Yesterday was the first round of the county leagues in Kerry. Some of the players who played against Mayo the day before played with the clubs yesterday. So Micheál Burns, I think, came on as a sub for Kerry.
Yeah.
He played yes. Several of the Kerry players who only came on as subs. The rest of the Kerry subs who didn't get games all played county league with their clubs yesterday. And I know my nephew Killian, who's been out injured now for the last couple of weeks, he was released to the club yesterday. They give him the rule is if you're released to the club, you get a half.
Yeah.
Maybe you can stretch it to 40 minutes. Killian came on for 35 minutes against St. Mary's, and he scored 7 points. Jack is very, very keen on getting them.
Damn you and Kerry, you just do everything.
Everything's great. But Pat, sorry, but this is two counties though. Like this, and again, it's mad. Like they deserve praise, Jack and Pádraig. But like, think about what you're saying though. It's like they're not playing with the county, and fair play to them for letting them play with the club. These boys shouldn't get a say in this. Like often in Dublin as well, players will get released if they're not involved. Sometimes they don't though. It might be, you know what, we've got a couple of injuries in that position. We're going to hold this guy back, and then this guy doesn't play for a few months. Like I would go even further. Whatever about the 26, it should be if you don't play or if you don't play 10 minutes. Then you're away back to play with your club because you're
I
a
can see
player.
as a useless. I'm just looking through some of the. Brino Björklik got his first game for the Gaeltacht. He's been out injured. Charlie Keating, Kerry defender, played with Crokes. Micheál Burns played with Crokes. It's a long line of fellas getting games and getting competitive games. There's no point in being
food for thought. I don't even know. I think the Monaghan games aren't starting for a couple of weeks. There's a lot of those boys could do it football, and we would enjoy it as a wee bit, a bit of an outlet, because the inter-county scene is a bit of a pressure cooker, and sometimes just getting back to your roots is cathartic, if nothing else.
But Conán, isn't it important? And like we're overcritical, even though we're not, since the new rules have come in and whatever like that, and the high scoring, whatever like that. But this Sunday. Isn't it some Sunday we're going to be lined up next Sunday? And I was just looking through all the various permutations, and you say, isn't this the brilliance of the National Football League? You have Division 1. Only one team has nothing to play with. That's Monaghan. 4 counties have a chance of getting into the league final. 3 counties are still trying to avoid relegation.
3 all-Ireland contenders as well.
Yes, in Division 2. only Offaly are gone. 7 counties still have something to play for. 4 with a chance of promotion and 3 to avoid relegation. You take Division 3, which has a shootout between Westmeath and Wexford to see who'll get promotion. And you have 2 other games which will decide relegation. Sligo against Clare and Limerick against Fermanagh. And then it gets even better. You go down to Division 4 and outside of Waterford, 7 of the 8 counties theoretically could still get into could get promotion. So what a brilliant weekend we have in store for the National Football League. It's going to be great.
Come here, Conán. Who did we not get to talk about because we talked about Kerry for so long? Who did we pass over?
I'm looking through Division 2, 3 and 4 to think who will Pat not bring this back to Kerry with. But
I tell you what, we should, if we're going to get for the last couple of minutes, you have to give recognition to Wexford. All right, I was sort of saying that, you know, I'm falling into the same thing I used to give out about the counties further down weren't getting attention, and I wasn't. I was just focusing on the top tier. Like Wexford now are going for back-to-back promotions. A county that very easily, dual county, that football would be seen as secondary, very easy for them to just sort of slip back, and as they probably have done for the last 10 years after they had that sort of good team in Leinster, to be a bit of an irrelevance. So they're going back to back, all to play for next weekend. I think it's against Westmeath is the big
shootout. It's a shootout for promotion.
Shootout. It's on TV.
So that's great. And again, the fact that it's back to back to come from was because I was actually at the league finals last year, seeing them, albeit they were beaten by Limerick that day. Limerick actually going the other way. Limerick are in danger of slipping back, which is unfortunate, but Wexford have pushed on. So whatever they're doing, I'd like to know, like, what's going on in Wexford. Have they done things differently? Is it just new management? Have they got a crop of players, or have they tried something different over the last couple of years? I don't know. I'd like to find out. Maybe
there's
that's
2 things. One, a local manager, shop operator, John Haggerty. That's number 1. Number 2, this is not a young team. This is a very experienced Wexford team. These lads have been on the go. The bulk of their team are in the 20s, in the late 20s. They're an experienced bunch of players. And also, and I mentioned them, I think, a couple of weeks ago, they also, I believe, have one of the best centre fielders in the game, and he's operating Division 2, a guy called Liam Coleman.
You're talking with him,
superb player. Yeah. So, no, it's some going. It's good.
Yeah.
And your mother's county as well, in fairness, got their first.
They got a win,
weekend.
and she was. We were actually out for dinner in Ballygawley on Saturday night, and I just flicked on the phone after we came out, and I said, "Mom, you'd be glad to hear mother." It was a pre-Mother's Day present, and the early Mother's Day present from Monaghan, so she was happy. Yeah.
Well, Wexford, Westmeath are on TV, which is great. TG Cahir doing the Lord's work this week because they have 5 games on YouTube. The only thing I would criticise, not TG Cahir, Cork haven't been on TV all year, lads. They've only had 1 defeat and they've been brilliant. They're top of Division 2. They're going to go they're playing Tyrone. Like, that's the high stakes game. If they can avoid defeat there, they're up. But obviously, if they lose, and Derry have a chance if they can win their last game against Cavan. It's all they play for in Division 2 as well. But live, you mentioned them already, Pat. Without Ryan Burns, like Kieran Downey, without Conor Grimes, Craig Lennon, they beat Derry and they beat them well, and they led them the whole game.
And Samuel Roygan, lads, I mean, he was immense. And it wasn't just his scoring, which he scored 1-6, but it's just his general play out the field. He was the quarterback, he was orchestrating everything. And you know what? And for Derry, who I'd been very impressed with, they didn't man-mark him at all.
I can't understand that, Pat.
He had the freedom of the pack.
I see it was the same the previous week or 2 weeks ago when they played Cavan, played them. He just sat there in the middle of the pitch, and as you say, I just can't understand that you at a coaching level you would bit of old school, bit of man marking, because Sam's big enough that you put in somebody nimble that he'll track him okay, whatever about getting the kick off or that. He's not going to burn him for pace, but you step off a player, he'll do that to you all day. I can't fathom that.
It was bad from Derry. Ger Brennan years ago when he was on the Smaller Fish podcast, he had a great saying about Kildare. He said they lick themselves after they win, and I was thinking about that this weekend. And Derry finally get 4 wins in a row, and they just weren't at the pitch. Like, you had one team who wanted to win this match, and another team who were licking themselves a little bit. Yeah. But that's it, lads. Pat, you've teed it up nicely. We do have a super weekend ahead. We have a lot of matches thanks to TG Cahir on YouTube, on their app, on TV. So it's going to be definitely a busy weekend, and it's going to be a fitting finale all over the division. So thanks a million.
Please God, the only thing is that please God, the weather gods will prevail, and we will have a nice sunny day with no wind, a level playing pitch, and just to see really the modern game at its best without being influenced by weather conditions.
Well, not to jinx it, I'm looking at clouds and sun for the weekend. So not to jinx it, fingers crossed we'll get that back, you know.
We heard it here first. Some podcasts do predictions. We just look at the weather app.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, lads, and we'll chat to you soon.